Good evening, good evening, good evening. So blessed, so grateful. I can't even tell you. My guest let me know this afternoon that she got ill. So recovery for you, sending you speedy health and wealth and happiness. Everything will be fine. And you won't believe who has stepped in to cover you today. We have Nick Lowery, who is freaking amazing. And he shared the stage with me. Craig was there. It was Ken. It was Turn It Up with Craig Dosslet, Ken Walls, Glenn Morshower, who goes extra mile. And here is Nick Lowery going the extra mile. And wow, this gentleman is freaking amazing. And I'm so blessed. Are you ready? You know when someone cancels on you, go. Right? I was like, the blue angels were flying overhead. I went in and I thought, in a perfect world, who would I like to have this evening? And he said, Nick Lowery. And I texted him and I called him and I left a message and he was like, sure, but I only have a half hour. I'm like, oh, perfect. So in case you don't know him, he's a towering figure in the world of sports, not only for his exceptional achievements on the football field. Guys, I'm sure you've heard of him, right? A remarkable 18-year NFL career, primarily with the Kansas City Chiefs. Yep, he solidified his history in football. My son's in baseball. As a reigning Super Bowl champion, Chiefs all-time leading career scorer and 7-time All-Pro selection. He has gone and conquered and gone the extra mile and gone the extra mile, and he's doing it across the board in all of his activities. He's the president of the Nick Lowery Youth Foundation, and I don't even know how he keeps up with his schedule. He's like always going, doing something, speaking something, showing up, helping somebody. It's amazing. He's the senior advisor at Massa Blue, helping law enforcement. He works at brand ambassador for Alzheimer's treatment. He works as the Kansas City Chief, all-time leading soccer and KC Chiefs Hall of Fame. Woohoo! I mean, seriously. He works as a brand ambassador for El Bandito Yankee Tequila. Studied government and drama at Dartmouth College. Studied Harvard MPA in leadership, negotiation, nonprofit management, Native American issues at John F. Kennedy School of Government, Harvard University. Howard's here in DC. Harvard University. He is freaking amazing. Let's bring him on so I don't waste his minutes. Here is Nick Lowery. Woo, 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 woo. I'm only a little excited that you're here. Thank you, as Glenn Morshower says, for going the extra mile.
Absolutely. And because you're a Redskins person, I grew up in DC and I was a huge fan of Larry Brown, and Joe Theismann held for me for 2 field goals in the preseason of 1979 for the Redskins when Mark Mosley had a strained upper thigh. And my other heroes were Bobby Mitchell, Charlie Taylor, and Sonny Jurgensen. And then I got to do an event with Billy Kilmer back in the day. He was also a really cool guy because all those guys were my heroes growing up in McLean, Virginia, at Potomac School, and then at St. Albans School, which is the National Cathedral School for Boys in Washington, D.C.
I think we were ships passing in the night because I actually used to have dinner with them. All the players would have dinner afterwards, after the home games. And back then the Foundry had just opened and we would all eat at the Foundry. I actually called Terry Herman and I said, Nick's on, if you have a moment, join us. It's absolutely amazing, all the stuff that you have done and are continuing to do.
Thank you.
And I mean, you're really helping the world, not just, you didn't just like do football, you were like helping the world. Your latest things are the homeless thing. The founder of Champions for Homeless, which puts a human face on homeless in Phoenix, Arizona. Are you in Phoenix right now?
I'm in Scottsdale. It's called actually Champions for the Homeless, and we've done 67 events, one for every year of my life. Thanksgiving.
You're really that old? You can't be.
I am. Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, and then we do 2 in the summer, and we serve over 1,000. On Easter, we served 1,100 homeless. Just a little reality check, because there's some people that are saying our economy is doing well. Well, the truth is, every single month last year in Phoenix alone, there were over 7,000 evictions, which translates to 91,000 evictions last year, and probably close to 225,000 to 250,000 people who were at least temporarily desperate and homeless. So it's a profound mission for me, and I've gotten a lot of my NFL friends to be part of it. Larry Fitzgerald's come a bunch of times. I've had some Wimbledon champions come. I've had Jessie Coulter, the wife of Waylon Jennings, sing there, and my buddy Sid Justin, who played in the Super Bowl for the Rams against the Steelers back in '79, and then has been since 1995. He's replaced a guy named Smokey Robinson as the lead singer for the Miracles. But it's really been about letting people going through the toughest times in anybody's life know that they're loved, that they're not forgotten. And we work with St. Vincent de Paul, and it's just a beautiful thing. And I will say this: when you start your Thanksgiving, when you start your Christmas, when you start your Easter, when you start any day, spending 4 hours preparing and then serving for over 2 hours with the homeless. Some call it unhoused, by the way, but I just think it's homeless. I mean, let's not get caught up in words. But when you help people know that and you see them, they know that you see them as a complete human being, as an equal. When you let them know there's no difference between the giver and the receiver, we're equal here, there, but God's grace. But for God's grace go with all of us at different times in our lives. And you're driving home from Thanksgiving that event, feeling truly that that's what Thanksgiving is and should be. Eating turkey and watching NFL football is great, but to me, when we bathe ourselves in something really meaningful like that, it is. We talk a lot about endorphins and all the different brain chemicals that are released. The best brain chemicals that come from that, and we crave it the rest of our lives. It's a healthy, they're not many, it's a truly the healthiest, best addiction.
100%. You are freaking amazing. We can go on and on and on and on. Picking up your purpose. I love the timeouts help. So like I could have gone crazy today when my guest couldn't come, but timeouts help. You just take a breath. And that's how Nick made that shot, that kick that launched him into the record books forever. But you have so many things going on. You want to talk about timeouts, training for it? I mean, what he did for football, you can do in your life, and we all should be doing it because we need to bring more kindness and help everybody. I'm into oceans, but you know what? All of a sudden, I was like, maybe I should be there in Arizona with him for Thanksgiving this year. I'm serious.
Yeah. Well, I would like to start by saying the best journey was, with great teachers at St. Albans and role models. My coach, Dick Johnson, who kept telling me to not give up. And, what makes it such a blessing is here I was cut by and rejected by 8 teams 11 times. I played 2 games for those Redskins, but then I was cut twice in 2 weeks. And after the first cut, I was at St. Albans on a Friday, and the Redskins were playing that night against Cleveland. And I'd already kicked for an hour and a half in the 98-degree, 90% humidity, weather. And I'd weightlifted, and I'm just getting ready to go. And somebody from the tennis courts, which back then were right next to the football field, ran out and said, Bobby Beathard, who was the general manager, I think he's in the Hall of Fame. He should be if he isn't. The general manager for the Redskins said, hey, can you play for us tonight? And it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 2:30, 3 o'clock. So I drove home to McLean, took a quick shower, drove down to RFK Stadium, and signed a contract literally an hour before the game. And one of the Redskins, Joe Lavender, who's a defensive back for the Redskins, saw me coming in, and he goes, man, this guy, Nick's got it down. We practiced all damn week, and he just shows up for the game. And I ran out on the field.
He has no idea.
And Joe Theismann was there, and he was great. It really is a good man. But what's really cool is when you hang in there and you never give up, whether you're Cynthia Manion or whether you're Nick Lowery or whoever you are, whatever your circumstances are, remembering, God's favor comes when we wait on the Lord, and that it's His timing. Because as athletes, as we're all life athletes, we want it to happen. We're doing everything we can. We're working hard, but it's still God's timing. So I will say this: 4 years later, 1983, September, like the second or third game of the season in RFK Stadium for the Kansas City Chiefs, someone that you're listening to right now kicked the longest field goal in the history of the NFL in the first quarter in RFK Stadium, a 58-yarder. It's if you go to nicklowery.com, you can see that. And it remains the longest field goal ever at RFK Stadium. So isn't that cool?
Won that game, didn't you?
My hometown team. I had 4 field goals in that first half, and we're up 12-0. Bill Kenny, our quarterback, had thrown for 300 yards, and then John Riggins ran for 127 yards in the second half, and we were beaten, I think, 31-12. But my family loved it because they're from the D.C. area, and the Redskins won, and Nick had a good game. But isn't that interesting that I hung in there? It wasn't quite ready for prime time. I was getting there, but wasn't quite, and took it to another level, and then continued because of that sort of healthy insecurity. Always worked to get better, and played 18 years and was most accurate kicker in NFL history. Had the most field goals in NFL history. Had the highest, the most 50-yarders in NFL history. The highest PAT percentage in NFL history when I played, 562 of 568. And none of that, not a single piece of that would have happened if I'd given up. So I just want to make sure that this is in the framework, because we see people at the end of their success arc, or at least at a place where they're successful, and you got to love the hardship and the lessons. Most of those lessons come through the rejections, and then hopefully we keep learning. We keep curious even after we've made it, so that it's not just a one-shot wonder.
And there you have it, folks. The secret to life. Not kidding.
Yeah.
Not kidding. We're done. That's it. Did you write it down? Did you listen to it? Get it in the replay. No, I got you for a couple more minutes, folks. Anyone have any questions? Tom says, thank you for your commitment to support those who need a helping hand. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom. I tell you what, I just love it. I just love working with American Indians who've been dealt a really, really hard hand. Just the resilience and confidence of today's Native American youth, thanks to Unity, United National Indian Tribal Youth. Anybody that has Native blood, check it out. They were recognized by Michelle and Barack Obama as the best leadership program for Native youth, and I've worked with them. And today's Native youth have become even more resilient. They've been resilient. They're still around after 500 years of genocide and all sorts of broken treaties. The work is always there, whether it's the homeless, whether it's Native Americans. I hosted in 1918, and by the way, I was in 2018, in September, one of the first 2 town halls, national town halls on veteran suicide. There's always something we can do rather than trying to do everything, but I have the stage, and having grown up in DC, and I've just gotten good at organizing things, working in Washington in my off seasons, and service is a beautiful thing. It's part of what that addiction is that I referred to earlier. And so, just what happens is when you align what your gifts are, I call them God's gifts in you, then beautiful miracles do happen, and your intuition and your skill sets improve, just like anything that you stick with. So I love it because I get more. I wouldn't call it's never effortless, but there's a certain frequency that you're putting out that other people get more quickly, the older and more seasoned you are in the work. And then you attract more and more of those people, and they hear this music themselves, which they've heard before, and they hear it again. And suddenly, a few of them are going, hey, it's time. And you know what? I think I've always wanted to do this. I'm now going to do this. So it's just a blessing. I love doing it. I love all the opportunities. Thanks.
And I love everything that you're doing. It's amazing. Patricia says, Nick is a service above self, inspiration for many.
Thank you, Patricia. Magic. The other part of it is we can set ourselves up for, hi, Zena.
Hi, Zena.
We can set ourselves up.
Oh,
thinking we haven't done enough. And it's so important to say and to be intentional and say, if I've helped one person, then it's worth it.
mhm.
And I think of the 100,000 homeless people that we've served over 18 years. You put a human face on the homeless at St. Vincent de Paul, and I've gotten to work with the staff there who are still the same people that I've worked with for 18 years. And the storytellers in our community, just like in Washington, storytelling is important, right? Everybody talks about social media and the interesting, shall we say, stories that are told or not told. Well, the storytellers that in Phoenix are telling the stories of individuals who are homeless so that people see them as human beings. I look at the tragedy of the homeless in Los Angeles and in Southern California and in Northern California in San Francisco, where they're treated as a group, as those homeless. When you throw people into any kind of group, it may be easier for you in the short term, but it doesn't do them any favors. And we made Phoenix the first city in the country to provide free COVID testing. And when everybody that you're helping can feel that energy and that respect and that love, those layers of pain disappear. And for the most part, people that I might say might be situationally mentally ill, because you and I would be situationally mentally ill if we were on the street for 6 months in the hot and the cold and being physically, emotionally, spiritually abused day in, day out with an unpredictable factor and food issues and health issues. But the people that have situational mental illness, which is the great majority, I'd say maybe 10% have real mental illness, and it ain't going to be changed in any quick way, and probably with some medication too. But the great majority suddenly tap into that normalcy and that sense of self-esteem and love, self-love that we all need. And that's just one more of the miracles of what we experience.
And you can be doing it, ladies and gentlemen, every day in every way. Eric says we're kicking it with Nick Lowery, tire legend. Yes. And, you know, slow down in your life. Like open the door for someone. You see an old person, say hi to them. Everyone has a story.
Yes. You know what, Cynthia? I do that more and more because in our culture, we have had, thank you, Sina. You're going to make me cry now. So many in our culture that are older are forgotten and they're stuffed away in senior homes, and their families think they're doing them a favor by showing up once a month, and they, and I have to say, different cultures have different strengths, and Asian culture and Hispanic, a lot of Native culture revere the elders, not the elderly, the elders. That means they are the repositors of the greatest stories and the deepest values. And so, yes, now when I see an elder person by themselves, I much more assertively just say, how you doing? What's going on? Because that little thing, that little effort on our part can mean a lot. And how sad is it that we just are so embarrassed and afraid of aging that we stuff it away in a closet in our minds. So I'm getting very philosophical today. So
That's good. I like it. Patricia says, when you recognize another, you're actually honoring yourself. What you see in me, we are one collective.
Yeah. That yoga word namaste, I recognize the light in you. Whew. So you can see, and I get emotional because I know I'm doing God's work. So it's not sadness. It's the opposite. It's a kind of deep joy, just saying, this is where I need to be. And I think people recognize when it's real. So
Tom's got a good one. Always leave others in a better place than you encounter them. Love.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, and it's hard sometimes because then we're going through our own stuff. I always like to think, if you ever watch the Key and Peele skits, you ever watch those? They're just hilarious. And do you know what I'm talking about? The Key and Peele.
I've seen a couple in acting class.
I wondered if they do one where Jesus is talking. He's just given a modern day Sermon on the Mount, and then he gets into his car and he's driving, and suddenly somebody cuts him off, and then somebody else, yells at him, and suddenly he's got this. Jesus has this road rage, and then God goes, "Hey, Hey, hey. Oh, sorry, Father. Sorry. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, we have to, and that's the hardest thing is to manage ourselves. And that, by the way, that's another great theme. Is when you're a kicker, I would spend Wednesdays before a Sunday game going through with Dr. Andrew Jacobs, who was a former Olympic sports psychologist, and we'd say, what are the things that can get in the way of this week? A girlfriend, a coach, a teammate, a friend, too much activity. And so I could edit those things and anticipate so that I would have the most energy to prepare and then to be ready on Sunday. And even then, games were always different, but by being intentional, that that voice that we have, that conversation we have with ourselves, there are two voices, I'll say, unless you've got multi personalities, which might be more. But I'd be running on the field, and one voice I can distinctly remember. You're running on, and there are 80,000 people, and it's a big game, and it's cold and windy, and you're going, God, this is the scariest thing ever. What am I doing? What? And the other voice, the voice of discipline, the voice of discernment, the voice of wisdom, the voice of your craft says, shut up, stay focused. You're going to be fine. Keep your head down. And to keep your head down for, I think, people that are watching and listening is stay focused on your lane. It's a big word these days. And on your craft. That's a daily work to prepare and on your craft. And then the goalposts are, what's the purpose? What is this serving that's bigger than me? What's the godly? What's the noble purpose? And so I was able to override that voice and, set the record for best accuracy. And it's been broken since. But I turned 34 in 1990 and kicked it 87% the next 3 years, which virtually no kicker at that point had ever done. I had 21 field goals in a row. And led the NFL in scoring in 90. 91, I had 21 field goals in a row. First time anybody had done that 2 years in a row. And then was 22 for 24, made the Pro Bowl, kicked the game-winning field goal in the Pro Bowl. And those are things that never could have happened if I'd given up, right? But the point was constant work, not neurotic work, but constant joy of the work. The craft itself is no longer really work, is it? It's the art form of self-improvement and using that, creating a circle of what am I doing this for? As Tony Robbins said to me before the AFC Championship game with Joe Montana and Derek Thomas and Marcus Allen on the Chiefs, a great team against Buffalo in 1994. He said I'd gotten to know him quite well. And he called me up and said, how you doing? This is the day before the game. I said, I'm nervous. I don't want to let my teammates down. He goes, well, who are you playing for? I'm like, he said, aren't you playing for those kids with cerebral palsy for your Kick with Nick program? Aren't you playing for the kids in the inner city? Aren't you playing for the kids at the cancer unit at Children's Hospital? Man. And that just so it's simple but profound, and it helped me reset so that when I went into the biggest game of my life, it was not about me. It was just, I want to inspire these kids. I want to do something. And I kicked my second field goal late in the third quarter, and it brought us to 20-13. And we still had Joe Montana, and we stopped him. Joe got the ball back, and we were on about our 20-yard line. And a guy named Bruce Smith, who great Hall of Famer, played with the Redskins for a while too, sacked Joe, gave him a terrible concussion, and Joe fumbled, and I would have too. And they scored, and we lost. But that lesson that Tony tweaked in me, which is what good mentors do, that really helped, really, who are we playing for? And feeding that it's always, it's about the money. Yeah, it's about, I love being recognized. I love, people saying that I'm a great kicker, but what is that for? And when that for, the why, we call it, gets big enough, then there's a spiritual momentum we create, which other people will feel. Mm-hmm. And they can tap into as well.
And they're probably feeling it right now from you. I'm feeling it. And you feel this, guys? It's just like, it's not just football. It's your life. It's everything. And that stuff, that's what you wanted. But now you're serving the greater purpose. Now you're helping. I mean, you were helping all along, but now you can do it more on a higher level. And you are doing so many things on every platform. And
Well, we need to
from a
do it.
good
We need
foundation.
to do it, but thank you. You know, and in Washington, it's interesting. I miss Washington. I worked in half my off seasons there. I helped launch AmeriCorps for President Clinton, and 4 years before, actually, here you go, President Clinton, and then 4 years before with President H.W. Bush. That was the Points of Life Foundation. And this is cool. I got to show you this.
Please do.
This is Barbara Bush, and that's Bobby Hebert, who was the coach, the quarterback for the New Orleans Saints back in 1989, and Mike Tomczak, who was the Bears quarterback. And this was National Volunteer Week, April 15th of 1989. And Mrs. Bush had a really well-defined kissing mark on her cheek. So we were joking about that. But, I got a chance to work back in Washington, and so many people in Washington are going there for the right reasons. And today they need to be reminded that it's about solving problems and coming together and common ground, because we have so much more common ground than the opposite.
I think we've been ships passing in the night the entire time. My little sister worked with Clinton. I was looking for her picture to show you. As a matter of fact, she's there with Clinton and and Mrs. Clinton and in the White House with a picture. She's in the Air Force. She's a colonel in the Air Force.
Wow!
And she is amazing.
Is she a pilot?
No, she isn't, but she wanted to be. She is freaking amazing, and she's currently in San Antonio, commander there. And here's that guy.
There he is.
Yep. But I was looking for those pictures. I was like, this is so cool. I'm like, how did I never meet you? Because we were just like this.
And you could argue that it happens when it's meant to happen. And sometimes maybe we were passing in the night and you weren't ready for me. I wasn't ready for you. You know what I'm saying? There is coincidences happen more, by definition, when they're meant to, not necessarily when we think they're going to happen, and when the student is ready, right? And I hope we're always students. I hope I'm not just a teacher, because, karma. Thank you, Patricia. That's exactly right. So sowing lots of, there's a minister here at St. Barnabas Church who's a friend of mine. He said, thanks for spreading angel dust. So, to me, the way I look at it is we spread angel dust, and some people will never know consciously that they were connected to it, but maybe some little reference 30 years from now, because of that, will go a different way. They'll make a different choice, and others will respond sooner. But it's our job just to be putting out angel dust. And
you know who does that a lot? Eric Lenore. He does a lot of angel dust. Do you know Eric? He's very much of a supportive. What do you write today? I can dig it. Oh my goodness gracious. Focus, never give up. How about Naked and Alone with 80,000 people?
Yeah. Well, that book's coming out this summer.
Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. There's a preview. If you go to his website, you can get on the hot list.
You can get on the hot list, and I'm really working hard to make it so it's not just, and then I kicked another field goal and I made a tackle, and make it so that it's both got some moments of truth, some moments that we have to look at as either teaching us through failure most of the time, or some new reference or achievement, and taking that and doing something with it. And the lesson as a kicker of being able to have enormously good focus. And there's something to talk about, since I'm so talkative today, that we talk about ADD and ADHD, as they call it today. I don't know why they had to add the H, but anyway, I probably could have been accused of being that. But if you read about ADD, I would rather call it attention intensity syndrome. In other words, a lot of the highest achievers ever, Michelangelo as one example, painting 130 reliefs in the Sistine Chapel over 17 years. I'm thinking he did have the ability to pay attention. Some of the most beautiful pieces of art ever. So really, some of the greatest achievers are actors, lawyers, surgeons, fighter pilots. It's not that they don't know how to focus. It's that they're looking for something that has a higher level of intensity. And of course, a kicker have to manage that incredible intensity. But I love it because it's taught me about not only the focus in the moment, but here's another scary word, Cynthia: accountability. Taking responsibility for missing field goals, taking responsibility for being the one that your team can depend on. And I didn't make every kick. So what did I do? You learn quickly as a kicker, which is very different from most roles in society where people they can get really good at spinning and blaming other people. But boy, what a blessing to learn at 24 and 25 to not make excuses and just get better. Best example was 1989. We're playing the Cleveland Browns, and I kick a field goal with 4 minutes left. And it was a terrible field, I will say that, but I made it. It was a cruddy kick, but it went through, and it was 10-10. It was Marty Schottenheimer's return to Cleveland after 10 years there, and now he's the Chiefs head coach. And there might have been a little bit of a revenge thing, in the air. We had Mike Webster and Steve DeBerg and Stephon Page and Derek Thomas was in his rookie year. And Stephon catches a big pass right at the end. And frankly, I'm so embarrassed even today to say I don't think I was ready. But I ran out there, lined it up. It was a 45-yard field goal, and it went like this. No good. They were offside, so I got to try another one. And then I missed one in overtime badly. So I'd missed 3 field goals officially too, but it really crushed me to let down my team. And I remember saying to myself, I am never going to let that happen again. I'm never going to have that feeling again. I'm going to get myself to a different level. And I will say I did stay up one night and watch a Tony Robbins commercial, and what Tony's tapes do. And I really don't like his seminars that much. I think there's too much peer pressure. I think the real work is always our own work, but his books and his tapes are unparalleled. And it made me do hard work every day of figure out what were my true priorities and values and what were my top 2. And I developed, thanks to his tapes that year, just that renewed sense of internal fortitude, that fortress, so that when you're on the sidelines and you're within 150 feet of 25,000 people, you're going to hear stuff, and yet not letting that bother you anymore. And I went on to have my best year, was 34 for 37. I didn't miss inside 50, I don't believe. I kicked a bunch of game-winning field goals, 21 in a row, and just led the NFL in scoring, and just renewed that I could get even better. I was already the most accurate kicker in NFL history, but that humiliation in Cleveland made me realize how quickly you can go from here to here just like that. And that's what happens in today's society. You can get canceled in a heartbeat. So you've got to renew always the discipline of your internal standards, your internal mission. And it made me better than ever. And I kicked better than I ever had after that, because I just said I had that reference from a failure. That's something that's a door I'm closing. I'm never going to have that feeling again.
And listening to that good voice in you, your gut going, yes, I can do this. And as Dan just said, focus.
And by the way, you can practice focus by your training, right? If you stick with your training, keep showing up, and of course, staying focused and curious. How can I train better? How can I train smarter? Today, as I look back, I used to get 2 deep tissue massages a week during the season when I turned 30. If I had to do it over again, I would have done 4 because recovery, I've trained so hard. And my legs, probably were a little bit more tired than they might have been, but, always looking for ways to improve, not to be neurotic and say I'm never good enough in the sense that you're beating yourself up, but just really turning that around and saying, how much better can I keep getting mentally, physically, spiritually?
I know you have another event at 8:00 Eastern Standard Time. Last question: what legacy do you hope to leave behind, both in the world of sports and in your humanitarian efforts?
Well, you know what? I met Bobby Kennedy Jr. A few weeks ago, and at the risk of being accused of being political, I'll tell you what, my next door neighbor growing up was Byron Whizzer White, Supreme Court Justice, newly minted Supreme Court Justice, 1962, in McLean, Virginia, 6801 Hampshire Road, and we were in 6803 Hampshire Road. And the second day we were there, a guy named Bobby Kennedy, with his bright red hair, was greeting Byron White, the new justice, who'd been his number 2 at the Department of Justice. And when I listen to RFK, I think of a man who's trying to preserve nobility of everyone, even as he's looking deeper and researching deeper and looking at causes. But most importantly, the Kennedy spirit of Camelot, of the shining city on a hill, of the nobility of the individual human being in all of us, all races, all religions, all life pursuits. That's what we need. America is the greatest country ever, but we are in real danger of losing that if we think it has to be a zero-sum game where one team wins and one team loses. We've got to go, what do we have in common? How do we protect what we have, but keep growing so that we're still an inclusive, beautifully diverse, and by definition, even more powerful because we embrace all of our resources.
Beautifully stated. Beautifully. Beautifully, beautifully, beautifully. Well, this is Nick Lowery going the extra mile, stepping up to be here to help me out, and I totally appreciate you. You are amazing,
Thank
amazing,
you.
amazing, amazing.
If you guys want to go to my website, it's Nick Lowery, NickLowery.com. Cynthia, you're awesome. Thanks for putting it up, Eric and Cynthia. God bless you. Thank you for your great positivity. And, who's ever listening today, this is what we all have to do. Keep filling ourselves, surrounding ourselves with good people, with people we love, doing the things we love.
And stay ready. Look, I just called him and he was ready. Here he is. Give it up for Nick Lowery.
Thank you. God bless.
Bye, guys.